Hi folks, welcome to another technical webinar, technical recording of tape and KNX products. Today we prepared the DALI Gateway P64 KNX, one of our latest news in terms of KNX and DALI communication. We prepared some, I think, interesting insights for the next approximately 35-40 minutes. Like you know, always a small partition of marketing aspects, but the main term is finally technical aspects. So we do have insight into the ETS application, and as well, like you know, in the meantime, so at the second part of these webinars, we do have here some practical parts where I show you how it works, how to operate, or today how to configure a DALI gateway. So be excited. So well, this was our product range, or this is our product range currently. Today we are talking about this powerful unit, multi-master application, data secure supporting, and so on. Then we do have in our product range the S128, so in total 2 channels, twofold, 64 appliances, and we do have here the S64 as, let's say, the smallest, simplest, however, less performant DALI gateway. And we do have, since a couple of weeks, the DM4 DALI actuator, which is a 4-fold actuator supporting you with any kind of color control, RGB, RGBW, color control, monochrome lights, and if you like, we can control as well DALI 2 based DALI relays. Here, easy installation, easy configuration and customization. Here we have to talk about, let's say, grouping. Yeah, we can do grouping, effects, scenes, and whatnot. So these, let's say, DALI gateways are more powerful. And again, I want to make you acquainted now about this product. A few marketing aspects in advance. So first of all, so we talk about, let's say, all our DALI gateways, and including the new broadcast DALI actuator is supporting you with data point 8 communication. So that means any kind of colors we can control. So no doubts about. We do support you. All of our products, of our DALI products, are supporting you with data secure. So especially when it comes to bigger projects, more prestigious projects like schools, like hospitals or whatnot. So then you can, if you like, or if you need to do, then you can communicate on KNX Data Secure. The programming, when we talk about this DALI gateway here, so the programming options we do have are in total 3 of them. So that means, first of all, you can either, if you like, you can operate here manually. So that means you can do the customization on these keypads here directly on the appliance. You get a feedback from this display here. Okay, it's really nice, but okay, a little bit sophisticated, let's say, when you intend to control, to manage, and to set the reasonable applications for 64 lights. So in general, frank speaking, we're using the ETS application with the DCA app, which we need. And the DCA app, where you get from the KNX store. There you'll find for free in the download area the Taben app for the DALI gateways. You have just to register, download it, install it on the ETS on the right hand side of the ETS bottom. You know there are the areas for apps and licenses and so on. So you open the app, plus integrate the new app and enable the app, and that's it. And then you can operate, you can do the configuration, and furthermore, you will see in a few seconds. What you can do with this powerful unit, multi-master application allows, first time now, to integrate sensors, just DALI 2 based sensors. So that means you do have here a sensor which is giving you finally just two connection cables, yeah, which are talking, or connection terminals, which are talking just DALI, that's all. And this you affiliate, you link directly here to the DALI communication, so then the installation is just done by the DALI side. So what we need to know is finally, so this we talk later on about, so you can do it in two ways. However, this is, I think, the way you are acquainted with. You do have powerful presence sensors, mostly used for indoor application, where you get the data from the KNX side, brightness, presence, the standby, and values, and constant light control, and whatnot. Yeah, so this you get finally from the sensor side. And the communication is finally linked to the DALI Gateway, and the DALI Gateway finally is transmitting or converting into the reasonable DALI communication. And from the DALI output, finally, you generate the communication, so the commands, on, off, brighter, darker, values, whatnot, whatever is needed, whatever is required. So this is how you are acquainted with, how you know how it has to be done. With in the wiring, to make it more clear, so you do have here the DALI, the KNX communication, and you have to put in the ceiling or in the corridor, whatever, you have to put next to the DALI communication, you need to affiliate, to wire finally KNX as well, so you need the cabling in the ceiling. When we use, or when we intend to use now, let's say multi-master application, for instance, and DALI 2 sensors we want to integrate, here you discover, okay, we have just here DALI communication. So that means outgoing to here, to the switch gears, for instance, and as well to the DALI sensor here. So you have just one communication line in the ceiling, and that's it. So that's one point. The difference of, or to the DALI communication, here we have to be careful. We have to distinguish a little bit, and you know, Apple and BIMs are some different. So in this case, the application is different as well. So you are used to finally from the KNX side. Okay, a powerful KNX presence sensor is supporting you with all the communication objects which are needed to do a reasonable constant light control. You can do standby control function. You can do HVAC control. You can use, for instance, these sensors as well for room surveillance. Yeah, can do master-slave combinations. Can adjust, for instance, full semi-automatic, whatever. Can, for instance, operate, in our terms, in office or school functions. So that means you can override or stop the level of the constant light control, for instance, or to shift, increase or decrease the level of the constant light control. And frank speaking, this you can't with a DALI 2 based sensor. So with a DALI based sensor in a multi-master application, you can transmit, for instance, a byte value, I/O, and a value, for instance, if you intend to send a feedback or so, and that's it. Yeah, so that's what we need to know. So the installation is by far easier, yeah, but on the other hand, we have to talk about the limitations finally. So if it comes to constant light control, first choice is finally using a real and a good KNX presence sensor like we do have in our product range. I think at that stage, it makes by far more sense to swap finally to the ETS application. So that means that we finally share now the application settings with you. So, and in these terms, so I open here the DALI Gateway application. Just a second, so okay, little delay, but now we have it finally. So basically, you can name this gateway. You can name this gateway in regards of the positioning of the functions, whatnot. Yeah. The behavior. So these are the behaviors which can be preset finally. So after a panic mode, or if, for instance, in terms of power failure or KNX recovery, whatever. So these you can adjust or specify however you want to do it. Special functions, manual operation, if you want to allow to do so. Yeah, okay, welcome, then do so. Emergency applications and so on. You can adjust firmware update, you can do firstly. Yeah, so you link to the to our webpage, and then you can do a firmware update if required, if necessary finally. If you want to do some dimming, okay, yes, you can activate here. And finally, energy saving means you get the reasonable options to switch off the power supply of the reasonable switchgears, for instance, in order to save energy, if you want to do so. Broadcast is activated, okay, sure. So then, let's have a look inside, let's say, one of these 16 groups. So group 1, when I scroll down, you see here 16 groups, or you can control here single lights up to 64. So it's up to you. So let's just take one application. So the group 1, for instance, which you can name it, yeah, and name it, for instance, Windows side. So I want to operate, to control, for instance, all the stretch of the light next to the Windows side. So then it's easy to identify. You see it pops up here. And it's later on, finally, if you do the, let's say, the customizing on the integration of the reasonable light, it is really helpful when you know, okay, this group belongs to the Windows side, for instance. Yeah. Then, for instance, I open this here, group 2, and this one is, for instance, the row in the middle. I name it the middle lights. Okay. And you get it here, and you get it here as well. G, so G3, so group 3, okay. This is, for instance, the lights, the inner side. Okay, so then I think it's clear. So, and if I open one of these communication objects, you discover here, so we do have the behavior, so we can do on off, we can send brighter darker, we can, for instance, send any kind of, let's say, values, and get as well, sure, for instance, the feedback, the status of the values, however, for identification or for a visualization, for instance, it's up to you. Yeah, well, so in general, here we can adjust, for instance, what we intend to do, what is, let's say, the brightness in terms of power failure from the DALI side, for instance, however. So I think stuff which you know. The different settings here, you can adjust, for instance, so the level, minimum brightness, maximum brightness. This is good to know, finally. So if you adjust here, for instance, the minimum brightness is 1%, but your light isn't able to support you. Some of these lights are stopping at approximately 5%, and then they switch off immediately, so don't wonder. Yeah, so this is a limitation from the light side, from the switchgear side. Okay, so, well, then you discover here color control, and this is finally where you can choose what kind of control commands you want to offer or to activate. Yeah. If we intend to do color temperature control, yeah, so this is according to data point 8, which we are finally supporting. So this is normal operation, and the communication here is finally, if I open here, color control, and here we do have the, put it a little bit aside, come on. So you discover here warmer, colder. And if I open finally here, so these, let's say, information about, it's a 4-bit value, so that means the dimmer function. Dimming up, dimming down means warmer, colder, yeah, whatever, in which direction we are operating. So that's the way how it works, yeah. So if you intend, for instance, to control RGB control, So you discover here this is a 3-byte communication. 3-byte, if I click on here, so you get exactly the value 3 bytes. So you need a powerful push button, for instance, which is giving you the reasonable 3-byte value, which could be, for instance, our Eon series, Eon 102, Eon 104, Eon 108, which I'm using later on in the live demonstration. Yeah, well, you discover here this is a combined object, but we are offering as well separate objects. So that means you can separate RGB, red, green, blue. So I activate now, and what you get here finally, you discover you get here separate communication objects for red, for green, and for blue. If you open, for instance, RGBW, yeah, basically we do have here as well 6 bytes. Yeah, 6 bytes means we do have here in this communication object, this is the value, yes, you discover here 6 bytes, okay. And as well, if you like, you can do here, or you can get here finally separate objects, and then you can control each of the channels totally separately, even the white color. Yeah, up to you. What is most convenient for you to operate? Okay, more or less. That's nothing really tremendous, specifically, however, but good to know where you can find what. Yeah, we have here some special functions. Special functions in terms of emergency, in terms of, let's say, some effects and so on. So, and for that purpose, we need now to open the DCA. The DCA is an app which we are needing now. So that means we have started the discovery, and this we do later on in the live act. Discovery, what kind of lights are affiliated or linked or combined to our DALI bus. We did the reasonable configuration, and then later on you have to affiliate this or to link it finally in the reasonable group. Okay? That's the way how it works. In terms of, let's start here with effects. Effects, effect 1 for instance, or effect 2, doesn't matter. So we can do it in such a way. Right hand side, mouse. Middle light. So take in here, yes. So the effects. I want to have a value which is approximately 20%. This is, for instance, monochrome light. Yes, okay, there we can just modify finally the brightness. I take here, for instance, this colored light. And the colored light, which is a part of these effects, for instance, I want to dim up to 40%. And if I click on here and open the color catalog, so I can modify, for instance, the reasonable color which I want to have. So just by color picking, can do it like that. Just a remark from my side. If you discover the reasonable colored light is probably a light, in this case a light green or so, and you may probably wonder why I do not get a more brighter, a more, let's say, intensive green light. So don't forget, so, and in the default, we do have here white 255, so that means we have the maximum. And if you modify this to 0%, so the intensity of the green or of the reasonable color will get more really intensive, however you like it. So this is, for instance, how you do an effect. So you can just by drag and drop, you put some of these lights here in this effect mode. You can separate it here, for instance, in different maximum 16 effects. Such an effect is finally called up by a value. Effect 1 is value 128, and you stop this effect by sending a 0, sorry. If you want to call up effect 2, means you send 129 and you stop it by a 1. And in general, special functions And you discover here this is the effect object or the communication object, and here you send the reasonable values to start and to stop, for instance, such kind of effects. Yeah, scenes, more or less, same stuff. So you take here the reasonable lights which you intend to use in such a case, yeah. So and then you can create your different scenes. However, in the effects, you can give here some, let's say, fading times. So that means these effects are fading between one function to the next function. So that's the advantage of an effect. For instance, a scene you call up and the scene is fixed. Yeah, that's, let's say, the difference from the understanding from this side. When it comes to color or to this time control, so then you can, for instance, add an action. And I tell you, for instance, or I want to have, for instance, a color temperature control. So color temperature control means, for instance, I want to do a time-based change of the color temperature, for instance, to simulate a kind of HCL, human-centric light. So I click on this here with the right-hand side of the mouse. I open the color dialog. And for instance, your light, which is able, and this is important to know or to clarify in advance. So if your light is able to support you with the reasonable, let's say, color temperature between, let's start by 3000 K up to 6,000 or 7,000 K, however, depends on what abilities your light is giving to you. So you can start here with this. So I start here with 3000 K because I know my light stripes, which I'm using here, are starting or supporting me beginning at 3000 K. So then, for instance, you click on here. This is left-hand side of the mouse. Let's assume, so morning, 9 o'clock, for instance, you want to start that. So time for fading and so on you can adjust, and this shall happen Monday, Tuesday as an example. And let's assume, so I haven't done it, but let's assume, so the group 7 is one of the tunable whites, and this one as well. So and then finally these tunable whites, these are finally participating on these time controlled effects. So I import or I add another one, which is again color temperature control, yes. And then, for instance, open the color dialog, and now we do a step ahead. So that means a few minutes later or half an hour later, however, it's your choice. So we want to change from 3000 K to 3200 K. So it turns from a warmer light more to a colder light finally. Here you set finally the time again, 09, and then we do have here, for instance, let's assume it's 30 and no fading time, so I leave it like it is, and you know how it works finally. And so you go up, for instance, from 3000 K to, let's say, noontime approximately, then you reach 6000 K, so like the natural daylight, and approximately 2 p.m. or so. So then you start to modify, to dim down again, or to change finally the color temperature down to more the warmer lights in the reasonable steps, which you can choose, which you can set up. You set up the color temperature, you set it up as well. So the time when it shall happen, the change from to. And to avoid that, for instance, this change from one color temperature to the next is probably not that hard. So you have the options, for instance, to click here on 5 seconds or 10 seconds, however. So you have a softly fading in from one color temperature to the other. So what you need finally to start this behavior, and we need for this, especially we need to synchronize the DALI Gateway with, or to actualize DALI Gateway with date and time. This is finally important in terms of that the controller inside knows what is the current daytime currently. This is important. And these effects you start by not this effect, this time control. You start finally with this communication object 2095. This is somewhere hidden here in this huge amount of communication objects, and here you have to give just on command, so you can activate or deactivate this, and then exactly at that time this procedure is starting, and you can stop it individually. You can start and stop by a time switch, you can do it manually, whatever you like. Okay, this is how it works finally. When it comes, for instance, to a motion sensor, you want to integrate a DALI motion sensor, so a DALI 2 motion sensor or presence sensor, directly on the DALI side. So then you have to start the installation or the new commissioning finally when the sensor is wired, applied in a DALI system. So then you have to start. Then on this side finally the sensor shall pop up, shall be displayed, and then just by drag and drop you put it here in the middle, you name it, and that's it. So if, for instance, I click in here, so anytime I can rename it, for instance, T-Ronda, DALI 2, and then I know exactly, and this is in corridor, for instance, and okay, it's limited from the digits. Corridor, let's shorten it. So, and then you know exactly where this finally sensor is, what's the name of it. And if I scroll down, you will see here you have application, and this is exactly this T-Ronda. And here you discover now the abilities. So that means the communication, which is supported by such kind of a presence sensor. So in the multi-master application is motion detector, but in our case it's a presence sensor. So that means now you can link this communication object switching on movement, or presence, however. So this you can link directly to a reasonable light group, for instance, which we do have here, behavior. So same group address like this one here, and so this pure DALI 2 sensor is controlling finally this light which we are displaying here. Okay? So sounds easy. It is easy. Get started with it. Important is finally, whatever you are doing here in this DCA, nevertheless, if we talk about sensors, if we talk about the scenes, if we talk about the effects or the time control, for instance, don't forget each function, download your setting which you find finally exactly here. Separately download time control, effects, scenes, and so on. It is stored, it is filed finally in the Multi-Master DALI Gateway application itself. So don't wonder if it doesn't run, if it doesn't work, if you haven't done it before you finally, at least at the end, you download the full application of the DALI Gateway. You get me? Fine. Yeah, well, and so let's get started now with the practical part. So that means we do have now, let's say, our demo panel, and our demo panel is positioned here. So you discover here different types of lights. You discover here the Eon 108, which I'm using finally, and here we do have the reasonable DALI Gateway. In the background, to share some details with you, so I do have here the bus monitor. I clear this and delete all the communication currently. So, and if I take off now the cover here, so now the sensor, this sensor here is detecting me now. The lights turned on, and you see here on top, you see there is a process now running. One of these processes is finally the constant light control. The constant light control is giving us 100%. So, and this because of the light which we do have here inside in our studio. Now the dimmer this sensor shall start now to dim down, give us the reasonable values, and so the constant light process will definitively get started here. So at that stage I go more for the application function to show what is ongoing here. So central off, okay, I positioned here. So then I have, for instance, here the universal light, this tunable white, tunable white, dimming up, dimming down. I think it is visible for you. So next step is finally from this, let's say 3700K, which is middle range of the color temperature, I increase now to 6000K, and probably you discover the light becomes more white, icy cold white, and dim down to 2500K, and in a few seconds it turns now more to a yellow light. Assuming that you can see the difference, and it's difficult, frank speaking, so because we are tapping here with a digital camera, all these lights, and these lights are focused directly into the camera, but assuming you can discover and you can see what is ongoing here in total. Yeah, then let's go more to the RGB lights. So probably I put this aside. We do have here, for instance, a kind of a green light. So I call up here different colors. Yeah, turns now more to a blue, turns accordingly to green, and furthermore. So all this you can easily do with our EON 108. Okay, off it. Then, for instance, I have prepared scene. Scene I've prepared. You see a different arrangement, different variety of different color temperatures, different colors in general. Call up scene 2, then the color temperature changes and the colors here are changing too. Whatever. Then we off it at that stage. And I open effect 1. And effect 1, for instance, is starting now here at that stage with this automatical change of the color temperature. In the sequence of 5 seconds, we do have here changes in the color temperature from cold white to warm white and backwards. Hopefully you can see the differences a little bit. I assume you can, yeah. And this you start with the effect 1. Like mentioned, you start effect 1 with the value 128. And if you send a 1, then you stop this sequence. Then I go to effect 2. Effect 2 is finally a color sequence. So we start here with a green. After a short while, it shall turn to another color. You see, it works full automatically. This sequence, the time frames and so on, you can start and stop individually. Here in this case, because this is effect 2, I started with the value 129 and I stop it by sending a 1. So then the color remains finally. And okay, ventilation. So just that you see with this DALI relay, we can as well control DALI 2 relay as an example. And finally, central off. Constant light control is working. Brilliant. So that's the way how it works. Finally, I think it was more essential to show you some functions, but one I want to add finally. So because I want to open my tablet, because this is some which is unique, and this I want to share with you. So, a second. Okay, app is open. So, and what you get finally here, you get the programming, which is exactly in here, in this EON 108. You get for free as an app. You have just to download the Theben Eon app. You have just to link to this Eon. We can do it in a short example. So I delete the current combination. So that means now the app, you see, is blank, deleted everything. And now I want to link this tablet with this Eon 108. So I click on plus, discovering, for instance, exactly there is some in the near area communicating with me in Bluetooth. So I open this and confirm this. And I try to open now, and then just once you get here a small window frame, and now you have to read here the identification 7654 in this case. 7654 and linked. Here we go. We open that and we do have here exactly the access to this panel here in the background. Probably you discovered this light was turning on now. I tried to dim it down. Visible, I think yes. Now you see the yellow, let's say kind of corona around. Okay, we can, for instance, modify the color temperature. So with the slider, you see now it turns to icy cold. We can modify or activate, for instance, the reasonable colors. Can select, for instance, another color in these terms. So you see, whatever you want to do, you can do it directly with the app for free. You have just to link, to pair finally your mobile or your tablet with the Eon, and then you have a visualization, a full package for free within half a minute maximum. Cool, is it? Okay, so hopefully it was interesting for you, and we count on you. See you next time.